A lot of MSPs are starting to sound the same. And that might be a bigger threat than AI. Not because AI does not matter, it does. But because a client cannot buy you a difference if they cannot see it. Think about it from a client's perspective. They open 3 MSP websites. One talks about proactive IT support. Another one talks about managed services and cybersecurity. A third talks about M365, backups, clouds, and fast response times. And honestly, to a business owner, that all can sound about identical. This is not just a marketing problem. This is a business model problem. Because when a client cannot clearly understand why one MSP is different from another, they usually compare the one thing that's easy to compare: the price. And once the conversation is only about the price, you already are in a weak position. This is why the old MSP model is under pressure. Not because support is useless, it's not. Clients still need tickets solved, users onboarded, system monitored, backups tested, endpoints protected, and Microsoft 365 managed. All of this still matters, but support alone is no longer enough to define the value of MSP. The client's world has become too complex for that. A small or mid-sized business today is not just running IT in the old sense. It's running cloud platforms, SaaS tools, remote users, identity systems, customer data, AI tools, cyber insurance requirements, and compliance pressure. So, when a client says we need IT support, the real need is often much bigger. They need someone who can help them understand risk. They need someone who separates useful technology from expensive noise. They need someone who can explain what happened when AI enters the business, or when a cyber insurance fraud asks for proof, or when customer wants evidence that basic controls are in place. This is a very different role from simply fixing broken devices. And this is where the old MSP model starts to feel far too small. For years, the MSP promise was simple: we keep your IT running. That was valuable. It still is. But if that's the whole story, your offer becomes easy to compare. And in a market where many providers use similar tools, similar wording, and similar packages, the story has to become sharper. The better question is not, can we support the client? The better question is, what kind of complexity are we helping them manage? Take AI as an example. A client comes to you and says, we want to start using AI in the company. The easy answer is to recommend a tool. But that's not where the real MSP value is. A good MSP slows the conversation down, not to block innovation, but to make sure it's usable. Before the tool is rolled out, someone has to understand what data it can access, who is allowed to use it, whether customer information can be uploaded, how prompts and outputs are stored, and what happens when the usage grows across the company. That turns an AI feature into a business decision. A weak MSP sells the tool. A strong MSP creates the guardrails. And most clients need the second one far, far more than the first. They only got enough hype from vendors, LinkedIn, and their inbox. They need someone who can say, this is useful, this is risky, this needs a policy, this needs security reviews, and that will probably cost you far more than you think if everyone starts using it. That kind of guidance is becoming more valuable, not less. The same thing is happening with SaaS. A client signs up for a project management tool, then a CRM add-on, then a file sharing platform, then an AI meeting assistant, a browser extension, a reporting tool. None of these decisions looks dangerous on its own. But after 2 years, nobody really knows where all the data is, who still has access, which licenses are used, what integrates with that, or which tools are even approved. And when someone leaves the company, the question suddenly becomes, are we sure they no longer have access to anything important? That is not just a software problem. This is exactly the kind of complexity MSPs should own. The next MSP opportunity is not only managing devices, it is helping clients regain control. And in Europe, this becomes even more important. The pressure is not only coming from cyber attacks or new tools, it's also coming from regulation, insurance, procurement, data protection, and supply chain expectations. NIS2, DORA, GDPR, cyber insurance questionnaire, and customer audits all push business in a similar direction. They need to show that technology risk is being managed responsibly. That is why this conversation matters, especially for the European MSP market. It is not enough to say, we take care of IT. Clients increasingly need evidence. They need documentation, reports that make sense, and a clear view of which risks have been reduced and which risks are still open. That changes the MSP relationship. The old MSP could often stay in the background and make things work. The new MSP has to make value visible. This is where many providers still get stuck. They add more tools, more dashboards, more reports, and more vendor platforms, but the client still does not understand what actually improved. If the client cannot see what risk was reduced, what cost was avoided, what decision became clearer, or what process became safer, then the stack is not doing enough for the relationship. The stack might be technically really good. It could even be the best stack possible on the market. But commercially, the value is still invisible, and invisible value is very hard to defend. This is why sell outcomes, not tools, is only useful if it becomes specific. Everyone says outcomes. The harder part is choosing which outcomes you actually are known for. Maybe your MSP becomes known for helping regulated SMBs provide security and compliance readiness. Maybe you become the provider that helps professional services firms control Microsoft 365, identity and cyber insurance requirements. Maybe your strength is helping traditional businesses adopt AI without losing control of data, access and cost. Those are much stronger positions than simply saying we do managed IT. Because now the MSP is not just selling support, it is owning a business problem. This is where the model is moving. Support becomes the foundation. It does not disappear. Tickets still matter. Response times still matter. Backups all matter. But nobody chooses a building because it has a foundation. The foundation is expected. The real value is what gets built on top. For MSPs, that means security, governance, continuity, evidence, risk conversation, AI readiness, SaaS control, and clearer decision-making. And here's the uncomfortable part. Not every client will want that. Some clients just want cheap support. Some will delay security until something breaks. Some will ignore cyber insurance requirements and renewal becomes quite painful. Some will treat IT as a cost center forever. This is exactly why MSPs need a clearer model. The future is not just about selling more services. It's about deciding which clients you can serve responsibly. A lot of MSPs ask, can we support the client? The better question is, can we support this client in a way that actually makes sense for both sides? If a client wants the cheaper possible package, but still expects strategic guidance, that relationship is probably heading for conflict. If a client wants AI tools, but refuses governance, that risk has to be addressed by you. If a client refuses basic security controls, but still expects full protection, the MSP needs to decide where that line is. These are not just sales questions. They are business model questions. So no, the MSP model is not dead, but the old version is definitely under pressure. The version that says we keep IT running and that is enough. The version that sounds like every competitor. The version that waits for the client to ask for security compliance or strategy. The version that cannot clearly prove the value it claims to deliver. That version is becoming very hard to defend. What replaces it? It's not one tool or one more new service package. It is a different role. The MSP becomes the person who helps the client make sense of technology before technology becomes a crisis. That means translating risk into a business language. It means making security visible. It means helping clients understand what AI should and should not touch. It means reducing SaaS chaos. It means providing value instead of just claiming it. More importantly, it means having a clearer position than we do IT. This is why MSP Global should not just be seen as an event about tools. The most important conversation is about where the MSP business model is going. The industry does not need only another discussion about which platform comes next. It needs a better discussion about what kind of MSP survives the next phase. So here's the self-check I would leave with you. If a prospect looked at your website and the website of your two closest competitors, would they immediately understand why you are different? Not because your logo is nicer, not because you say trusted partner, but because your value is actually clearer. The answer is no, that is your work. Because the enemy is not AI, the enemy is sameness. And the MSPs that win will be the ones that make their value impossible to confuse. If you're interested in these topics, this is exactly what we talk about at MSP Global, Europe's only international managed service provider event. And I would love to hear your view in the comments. If a prospect compared you with two competitors today, what would actually make you different? I would genuinely like to hear that in the comments.